The crystal wine glass shatters in my grip, sending shards across the pristine white tablecloth. Red wine bleeds through the fabric like an accusation. The restaurant falls silent, but I barely notice. My eyes are locked on Evelyn's smug expression across the table. I'm Blair, and this was supposed to be my celebration dinner. My moment. Instead, it's becoming another battlefield in my mother-in-law's endless war against me. "Oh dear," Evelyn says, dabbing her napkin delicately at nothing. Blair seems a bit overwhelmed. Perhaps this promotion is too much pressure. My husband Mark reaches for my hand under the table, but I pull away. His silence speaks volumes. "I assure you I can handle the pressure just fine," I say, my voice steady despite the trembling in my chest. Our 2-year-old son Ethan, mercifully occupied with his iPad in his high chair, doesn't even look up. "Of course you can, dear." Evelyn's voice drips with false sweetness. "Though I do worry about poor Ethan, with you working such long hours now." She turns to our dinner guests. "Did you know she missed his first steps? Mark had to send her a video." The wine seeps deeper into the tablecloth. A server hurries over with fresh napkins, but I wave them away. "Let it stain. Let everyone see the blood-red evidence of this moment." "I was closing a major account that day," I say, "the same account that earned me this promotion." "And that's wonderful," Evelyn continues, addressing our friends rather than me. "But children need their mother, especially at this age. Mark's father and I always put family first." "Until he left you," I snap before I can stop myself. The table goes deadly quiet. Mark's hand grips my knee hard under the table. Warning or support, I'm not sure anymore. Evelyn's perfectly composed facade cracks for just a moment, revealing something dark and vengeful underneath. Then it's gone, replaced by a sympathetic smile that makes my skin crawl. "I just worry," she says softly, "about all of you, about my grandson growing up without proper guidance." "Mother," Mark finally speaks up, "this is Blair's night. Let's focus on celebrating." But the celebration is already ruined. I can see it in our friends' uncomfortable glances, in the way they're shifting in their seats, in how quickly they drain their wine glasses. "You're right, darling," Evelyn concedes, "though I do have one small announcement of my own." She straightens in her chair. "I've decided to sell my house. I'm moving closer to you all, just 10 minutes away. Won't that be wonderful? I've already found the perfect place." The room spins slightly. I grip the edge of the table, feeling the rough texture of the tablecloth under my fingers, anchoring myself to reality. 10 minutes. She might as well be moving in. "That's unexpected," Mark manages. "Gamma," Ethan finally looks up, beaming at his grandmother. She reaches across to pat his cheek, her eyes meeting mine over his head. "Yes, darling. Gamma will be around much more now, to help take care of you properly." The threat in those words is clear as crystal, like the shards still scattered across the table. This isn't just about tonight's dinner. This is a declaration of war. I stand abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "Excuse me," I mutter, heading for the restroom on unsteady legs. In the harsh fluorescent lighting, I stare at my reflection. My carefully applied makeup can't hide the fury in my eyes or the tension in my jaw. Evelyn thinks she's won tonight, but she's wrong. She has no idea what I'm capable of when pushed too far, and I've just been pushed over the edge. The bathroom door creaks open. Through the mirror, I see her entering, that same satisfied smile still playing on her lips. Time to decide. Do I maintain the facade of civility, or do I show her exactly who she's dealing with? I turn to face her, my decision made. The moving truck rumbles away from the house next door, leaving behind a trail of exhaust and my shattered peace of mind. Through my kitchen window, I watch Evelyn directing the movers like a conductor, each imperious gesture a reminder of my new reality. "More coffee?" Mark asks, sliding his arms around my waist. I shrug him off. "You knew, didn't you, about her buying that house?" His silence is answer enough. I turn to face him, catching the guilt in his eyes before he looks away. "She mentioned it a few weeks ago," he admits. "I thought she was just talking, like always." "Like always?" My laugh comes out harsh. When has your mother ever just talked about anything? Everything she does is calculated. Ethan's crying pierces the tension. Before I can move, Evelyn appears at our back door, grandson already in her arms. Poor dear was all alone in his playpen, she says, bouncing him. I heard him from next door. My fingers curl into fists. He wasn't alone. We were right here. Of course you were, dear. She kisses Ethan's forehead, leaving a perfect red lipstick mark. Though I noticed his breakfast bowl was still full. Having trouble getting him to eat again. He's fine, I snap, reaching for my son. But Ethan clings to his grandmother, burying his face in her neck. I'll just fix him something quick, Evelyn says, moving to our refrigerator with the familiarity of someone who already considers this her domain. I still remember all Mark's favorites from this age. Mark clears his throat. Mother, we need to talk about boundaries. Oh, that reminds me, she interrupts, pulling out eggs with her free hand. The neighborhood association meeting is this afternoon. I've already joined, of course. Blair, dear, I mentioned your little incident at the restaurant. They're very understanding about stress-related issues. The room tilts slightly. You did what? Just looking out for the family reputation. She cracks eggs one-handed into a bowl. Speaking of which, I ran into your boss at the grocery store yesterday. Lovely woman. Very concerned about your work-life balance. My coffee mug slips from my grip, crashing to the floor. This time, the shattering sound barely registers. You spoke to Catherine? My voice sounds distant, even to myself. Catherine, who just last week mentioned reconsidering the team structure under my new position. Mother. Mark's tone carries a warning, but it's too late. Just a friendly chat. Evelyn's smile doesn't reach her eyes. Though she did mention some concerns about your ability to handle the new responsibilities, especially with a young child at home. The pieces click into place. Catherine's sudden doubts, the whispers around the office, the pointed questions about my home life, all orchestrated by the woman standing in my kitchen, feeding my son, as if she hasn't just potentially destroyed my career. Get out, I whisper. What was that, dear? You really should speak up. Get out. I step forward, glass crunching under my feet. And give me my son. Evelyn's expression hardens. Mark, your wife is becoming hysterical again. Perhaps... Mother. Mark's voice is firmer now. Please. She sets Ethan in his high chair, smoothing her skirt. We'll discuss this when everyone's calmer. I'll bring over dinner later. Something healthy. Blair looks like she hasn't been eating properly. The door clicks shut behind her. Through the window, I watch her walk next door. Head high, victory in every step. Blair, Mark starts. Don't. I'm already reaching for my phone, fingers trembling as I pull up Catherine's number. Just don't. We'll figure this out, he says, but his words sound hollow. Ethan babbles happily in his chair, still wearing the lipstick mark like a brand. I stare at it, something cold and calculating taking root in my chest. Yes, I say quietly, more to myself than Mark. We will. Because now I understand. Playing nice isn't an option anymore. Evelyn wants a war, I'll give her one. But first, I need to know exactly what I'm up against. I grab my laptop, pulling up search engines. Time to dig into my mother-in-law's past. Everyone has secrets, and Evelyn's perfect facade has to have cracks somewhere. Mark touches my shoulder. What are you doing? I close the laptop slightly. Research for work, I lie, watching Evelyn through the window as she arranges flowers in her new front yard. Just catching up on some things. The lipstick mark on Ethan's forehead gleams like a target. The email from Human Resources sits open on my screen, its words burning into my retinas. Performance review. Concerns raised, temporary suspension pending investigation. 3 weeks of Evelyn living next door, and my career is already unraveling. My office door opens without a knock. Catherine stands there, her expression carefully neutral. Blair, do you have a moment? To discuss the suspension I'm hearing about from HR instead of my direct supervisor. The words come out sharp enough to cut. She closes the door, sighing. Several clients have raised concerns about project delays and erratic behavior. Your mother-in-law was quite worried when she reached out. Of course she was. I pull up my project files. Every deadline met, every deliverable completed, but Evelyn's concerns matter more than actual results. This isn't personal. My laugh sounds foreign to my own ears. Really? Then explain why my mother-in-law has more influence over my career than my track record. My phone buzzes. A text from Mark. Mother says Ethan's fever is getting worse, taking him to her pediatrician friend. The room spins. Excuse me, I tell Catherine, already dialing Mark. My son is sick and apparently being taken to a doctor without my knowledge or consent. I'm halfway to my car when Mark answers. Blair, he's fine. Mother noticed he felt warm during their play date. Play date? He was supposed to be at daycare. She picked him up early, said he seemed off. The steering wheel creaks under my grip. She had no right. She's trying to help, Mark interrupts. Dr. Matthews is one of the best pediatricians in the city. A doctor we didn't choose, who I've never met, who's apparently another one of your mother's convenient friends. I pull into traffic, hands shaking. Where are you? Mother's house. Blair, maybe you should take some time to calm. I end the call. Evelyn's new house looms before me minutes later. Through the window, I see them all gathered in her living room. My husband, my son, my mother-in-law, and a silver-haired woman I assume is Dr. Matthews. They look like a perfect family portrait, one that doesn't include me. The door opens before I can knock. Evelyn's concern appears genuine, which somehow makes it worse. Blair, dear, you didn't need to leave work, though given what I'm hearing about your performance lately, perhaps it's best. I push past her. Ethan reaches for me from Mark's lap, his face flushed. When I touch his forehead, it's barely warm. Mrs. Anderson, Dr. Matthews says, I was just explaining to your mother-in-law that Ethan's temperature is only slightly elevated, probably teething. Dr. Matthews, I keep my voice level. I appreciate your time, but we have our own pediatrician. Of course, but given the concerns about consistency in Ethan's care. What concerns? Evelyn steps forward. I've simply noticed some patterns. The missed meals, the irregular nap schedules, the daycare situation. The daycare situation? My vision narrows to a tunnel focused on her perfectly composed face. Well, leaving him with strangers for so many hours. And now I hear you're having troubles at work. The stress must be affecting your judgment. Get out. The words come out soft, dangerous. This is my house. Not you. I turn to Dr. Matthews. You, get out. And if I find out you've documented anything about this unauthorized visit, I'll report you to the medical board. The doctor leaves quickly. Smart woman. Blair, Mark starts, but I hold up a hand. Take Ethan home. Now. He hesitates, looking between his mother and me. Mark. My voice cracks. Choose, right now. He stands slowly, still cradling Ethan. This isn't about choosing. It is. I meet Evelyn's gaze. It always has been. Something shifts in her eyes, triumph mixed with something darker. You're proving my point about your stability, dear. I step closer, close enough to smell her expensive perfume. You think you're winning? Watch me. Everything you've built, every relationship you've manipulated, every lie you've told, I'm going to expose it all. Blair. Mark's shock is palpable, but I'm already walking out, my phone in hand, because what Evelyn doesn't know is that I've spent weeks digging. And this morning, I finally found something. A 20-year-old news article about a suspicious fire at her former business buried in digital archives. Sometimes fighting fire with fire is the only way forward. I hear Mark calling after me, but I don't turn back. Let him choose. Let him see what his mother really is. The game is changing, and Evelyn has no idea what's coming. The insurance investigator's business card feels heavy in my hand as I sit in my parked car, staring at the decades-old case file spread across my passenger seat. The photographs of Evelyn's burned-out boutique tell a different story than the official report of electrical failure. My phone lights up with Mark's 10th call of the day. I silence it, focusing instead on the investigator's handwritten notes. Insurance payout, $850,000. Suspicious timing, business failing, divorce pending. The tap on my window makes me jump. Mark stands there, his expression a mix of concern and frustration. I slide the documents into my bag before stepping out. "You can't keep avoiding me," he says. "Like you avoided telling me about the suspension," I counter. "Catherine called. Apparently, you and your mother discussed my situation with HR last week." His flinch confirms it. "I was trying to protect you, Mother thought." "Stop." I hold up my hand. "Just stop saying what Mother thought." A child's laugh draws our attention to Evelyn's front yard, where she's pushing Ethan on a newly installed swing set. My swing set, the one I'd ordered last month, now assembled in her yard instead of ours. "She meant well," Mark starts. "The delivery came while you were at work, and she thought—" "Did she think about the fire too?" The words slip out before I can stop them. His face changes. "What fire?" I pull out the old newspaper clipping. The one that conveniently solved all her problems 20 years ago, right after your father left when her business was failing. "That was an accident." But uncertainty creeps into his voice. "Was it? Because I spoke to someone today who investigated it. Someone who never believed the official story but couldn't prove anything." I step closer. "Someone who remembers interviewing your mother's business partner, the one who disappeared right after the insurance payout." Mark takes the clipping with trembling hands. "This isn't... You can't..." "Can't what?" "Question the perfect narrative she's built." I watch Evelyn swing our son, her movements precise and controlled. Like I can't question why she's systematically destroying my career, or why every time I turn around, she's made another decision about our son without consulting us. "Blair, please." His voice cracks. "Whatever you're thinking of doing, I'm thinking of protecting our family." I turn to face him fully. "The question is, are you with me or against me?" Before he can answer, Evelyn calls out, "Mark, darling, come see how happy Ethan is on his new swing." I watch my husband's face, see the moment he retreats into familiar patterns. He hands back the clipping, not meeting my eyes. "We'll talk later," he mumbles, already moving toward his mother and son. I get back in my car, hands steady as I start the engine. Through the windshield, I watch my family. My husband pushing the swing now, my son squealing with delight, my mother-in-law directing it all like a puppet master. My phone buzzes with a text from the investigator. "Found the business partner, still alive, willing to talk." I think about the suspension letter in my email, about the whispers at work, about my son's medical records being accessed without my permission, about the swing set that should be in my yard. The next text makes my breath catch. She paid him off, but he kept evidence. Says it's time for the truth. I watch Evelyn laugh at something Mark says, her hand possessively on his shoulder. She catches my eye through the car window and raises one perfectly manicured hand in a wave that feels more like a challenge. 20 years ago, she burned down her own business to avoid losing control. What would she do to keep control of her son, of her grandson? I text back one word: "When?" The response is immediate. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m. I start driving, leaving my family in the rearview mirror. In my bag, the case file seems to pulse with potential, not just evidence of past crimes, but ammunition for the war ahead. Because now I understand, this isn't just about protecting my family anymore. It's about exposing the truth before history repeats itself. And this time, I won't let her burn everything down. The coffee shop feels too exposed for this conversation, but James, Evelyn's former business partner, insisted on a public place. His hands shake as he slides the manila envelope across the table. "I kept everything," he says, voice barely above a whisper. "Insurance documents, threatening letters, photos of the accelerant she used." I don't touch the envelope. Why come forward now? He glances over his shoulder, paranoia etched in every movement. "Because she's doing it again. I've seen the signs before. The systematic isolation, the careful manipulation of facts, the way she turns everyone against her target." My phone vibrates. Another message from Mark. "Mother's lawyer called. Says you're harassing her. What's going on?" James notices my expression. Let me guess. She's already started counter moves. She's good at those. I finally take the envelope, but leave it sealed. What happened after the fire? She gave me a choice: take the money and disappear, or face accusations that I started it. His bitter laugh mirrors my own thoughts. I chose wrong. The money ran out, but the guilt stayed. The bell above the door chimes. Evelyn walks in, her timing too perfect to be coincidence. Our eyes meet across the room, and her smile turns predatory. James goes pale. I was never here, he mutters, already standing. But everything you need is in that envelope. Just be careful. She's... James. Evelyn's voice cuts through the cafe chatter. What a delightful surprise. He freezes, then hurries past her without a word. She watches him go before taking his vacant seat. Interesting choice of company, she says, eyeing the envelope, though I suppose desperate people make desperate decisions. Like burning down their own business. Her smile doesn't waver. Or like meeting with discredited former partners who had gambling debts and substance abuse issues. Did he mention those while spinning his tales? The envelope suddenly feels heavier. How did you know I'd be here? Oh, Blair. She reaches across the table, patting my hand with false sympathy. I've been watching you unravel for weeks. The paranoid investigations, the hostile behavior, the neglect of your family duties. Mark is quite concerned. My phone buzzes again. This time it's from Catherine. Board meeting tomorrow regarding your position. Formal hearing. Interesting timing, I say, pulling my hand away. Life is full of interesting timing. Evelyn stands, smoothing her immaculate dress. Like how quickly a career can collapse, or how easily a mother can lose custody when her behavior becomes erratic. The threat hangs between us. Through the window, I spot James getting into a taxi, his shoulders hunched with old fear. You can't take everything from me, I say. Can't I? She glances at my phone as it lights up with another message. It seems I already am, but there's still time to step back. Destroy that envelope, apologize for your accusations, take a leave of absence to recover. We can help you, Blair. Mark and I both want what's best for Ethan. The cafe suddenly feels airless. My fingers curl around the envelope, feeling the weight of its contents, evidence that could destroy her, or ammunition she could use against me. Think carefully, she adds, heading for the door, about what you have to lose. After she leaves, I finally open the envelope. Photos spill out, the charred remains of her boutique, close-ups of gas cans, bank statements showing massive debts. But mixed in are recent photos too. Me leaving the investigator's office, James entering my car yesterday, screenshots of my search history about the fire. She's been one step ahead the entire time. My phone rings, Mark again. This time I answer. Where are you? He demands. Mother says you're having some kind of breakdown. There's talk about a psychiatric evaluation. I hang up, staring at the evidence spread before me. Use it now and risk losing everything, or back down and live under her control forever. The barista approaches with a cup I didn't order. From the lady who just left, she says. It's my favorite drink, something only Mark and Evelyn know. Attached to the cup is a note in her elegant handwriting. Choose wisely, dear. Some fires can't be put out. I take the photos and stand, my decision crystallizing. Because she's right about one thing. Some fires can't be put out. But they can be controlled and redirected. Time to fight fire with fire. The annual family reunion feels like walking into a trap. Every eye follows me as I enter Evelyn's perfectly manicured backyard, the manila envelope burning in my purse like a loaded gun. Mark stands beside his mother at the grill, not meeting my gaze. Ethan runs past me toward them, and Evelyn scoops him up with practiced grace. Look who finally decided to join us, she announces to the gathered relatives. We were just discussing your situation. The whispers ripple through the crowd. I catch fragments. Psychiatric evaluation and custody concerns. And such a shame. I grip the envelope tighter. Actually, I'd like to discuss your situation, Evelyn. The conversations halt. Mark finally looks at me, his expression pleading. "Don't do this," his eyes say. "Not here." "Blair," his voice carries a warning. "Maybe we should—" "Should what?" I pull out the photos, my hand steady. "Should pretend everything's fine while your mother systematically destroys our lives? Like she destroyed her business 20 years ago?" Evelyn's smile doesn't waver, but her arms tighten around Ethan. "Dear, you're not well. We all see it." "Show them," I demand, turning to the stunned family members. "Show them the psychiatric hold papers you've already prepared. Tell them about the custody petition your lawyer filed yesterday." Mark steps forward. "What petition?" "The one your mother submitted," I say, "claiming I'm mentally unfit to care for our son." The silence stretches, heavy with shock. Then Evelyn laughs, the sound like breaking glass. "You see," she addresses the crowd, "these paranoid delusions, these accusations. This is exactly what we're worried about." I start laying out photos on the picnic table. Delusions? Like the fire that conveniently solved all your problems? The partner you paid to disappear? "Blair, stop." Mark grabs my arm. "You're scaring Ethan." Our son starts crying, clinging to Evelyn. The sight twists something inside me. "James kept everything," I continue, my voice rising. "The proof of what you did, what you're still doing." "James?" Evelyn's voice cuts through mine. "The same James who died in a car accident this morning." The world stops. "What?" She pulls out her phone, showing a news article. There it is in stark headlines. Single car accident, no survivors. The timing too perfect to be coincidence. "Another tragic victim of substance abuse," Evelyn says softly. "So sad when people can't face their demons." My legs give out. Mark catches me before I hit the ground, but when I look up at him, I see doubt clouding his eyes. "The photos," I whisper, reaching for the evidence now scattered across the table. But as I look closer, I see what everyone else must see. Old insurance documents that prove nothing. Blurry photos that could mean anything. The desperate collections of someone losing touch with reality. Evelyn hands Ethan to a relative and approaches me, her voice dripping with concern. "We've arranged for help, dear. The best care facility in the state. Mark agrees it's for the best, don't you, darling?" I look at my husband, waiting for him to defend me. He stares at the ground. "Just for a few weeks," he mumbles, "until you're better." Two men in medical uniforms appear at the gate. I didn't even hear them arrive. "No." I back away, but there's nowhere to go. The family has formed a circle, their faces masks of pity and judgment. "Mark, please. She's lying. She's always been lying." "Mama's sick." Ethan's small voice cuts through the chaos. "Just tired, sweetheart," Evelyn soothes. "The doctors will help her rest." The medical team moves closer. I clutch the useless photos, seeing my reflection in the crowd's eyes. Disheveled, desperate, exactly what Evelyn wanted them to see. "You won't get away with this," I tell her. Her smile is almost gentle. "I already have, dear. I already have." The last thing I see before they lead me away is Evelyn holding my son, whispering something in Mark's ear, orchestrating the final act of my undoing. I've never felt more alone, or more determined to survive. The care facility's visitor room feels staged, too clean, too bright, like Evelyn's perfect living room. She sits across from me, elegant as always, while Mark hovers by the door, like a reluctant referee. 3 weeks of mandatory rest, and here she is, offering an olive branch. The timing isn't lost on me. "The doctors say you're doing better," she says, smoothing her skirt. We're all so relieved. I study her face, seeing past the mask for the first time. There's something different in her eyes, a flicker of unease. "How's Ethan?" I ask. "Missing his mother." She reaches for my hand. I pull back. Though he's adjusting well to the new routine, children are remarkably resilient. "Like you were." The words slip out quietly. "After your husband left? After the fire?" Her smile freezes. "Blair, dear, we've discussed these delusions." "I got a package yesterday," I interrupt. "From James." Mark steps forward. Blair, James is dead. Yes. I pull out my phone, playing the video James recorded the day before his accident. The sound fills the sterile room. If you're watching this, Evelyn found me, but I mailed copies of everything. The real insurance documents, the police statements, the proof of what she did to her business partner before me. Evelyn's face drains of color. The mask cracks further. Turn that off. Why? Afraid of ghosts? I swipe to another file. Or maybe afraid of this? Your conversation with the insurance investigator last week about my accident. The recording plays her voice, clinical and cold. Yes, similar to James. Clean, untraceable. Mark makes a strangled sound. Mother? It's manipulated, she snaps. Another symptom of her instability. Like the stability you showed when you burned down your business. I stand, stronger than I've felt in weeks. When you drove your husband away, when you destroyed every relationship that threatened your control, I protected my family. Her composure shatters. Everything I did was to keep us together. By planning my death, you were taking them from me. She rises, mask completely gone. Like everyone else, trying to steal my son, my grandson, my life. Mother, stop. Mark's voice shakes. I gave you a chance, she continues, advancing toward me. To step back, to know your place, but you just kept pushing, kept threatening everything I built. Everything you built on lies, I say, on manipulation and fear. On survival. Her laugh holds decades of bitterness. You think you know about protection, about sacrifice. I watched my mother lose everything to a man who abandoned her. I swore that would never happen to me, to Mark. So you burned it all down first, I press. Your business, your partner, your marriage, and now me. I made choices. Her voice drops to a whisper. Necessary choices. Like James's accident. Something dark flashes in her eyes. Some people are casualties of war. Mark steps between us. What did you do? She reaches for him. Everything for you, darling. Always for you. He recoils. The gesture hits her like a physical blow. The police have everything, I tell her. James made sure of it. They're reopening the investigation into the fire, into his death. She straightens, gathering her dignity like armor. You've destroyed this family. No, Mark says quietly. You did that yourself. Security appears at the door, but not for me. Detective Carter follows, warrant in hand. Mrs. Anderson, we need you to come with us. She looks at Mark one last time, seeking alliance, protection, control. He turns away. As they lead her out, she stops beside me. You think this is victory? Her whisper carries years of pain. Watch. Everything you love will slip away, piece by piece. That's the price of winning. I watch her walk away, head high, even in handcuffs. Part of me wants to feel triumph, but all I feel is hollow. Mark touches my shoulder. I'm sorry. I should have seen. We all see what we want to see. I lean into his touch, feeling the weight of everything we've lost and gained. The question is, what do we see now? Through the window, I watch Evelyn disappear into the police car, a queen dethroned. Her words echo in my head, a warning, a prophecy, or maybe just the bitter wisdom of someone who learned the wrong lessons about love and protection. The war is over, but the cost of victory remains to be seen. The prison visiting room echoes with unspoken words. Evelyn sits across from me, her orange jumpsuit a jarring contrast to her perfect posture. 6 months into her sentence, and she still carries herself like she's at a tea party. Ethan asked about you yesterday, I say. Her hands twitch on the table. Did he remember the swing set? No, he remembered the lipstick mark you used to leave on his forehead. Something flickers in her eyes, pride maybe, or regret. It's harder to tell now. Mark isn't coming today, she asks, though she knows the answer. He's not ready. I leave out the nights I find him staring at old family photos, trying to reconcile two versions of his mother, the protector and the destroyer. And yet here you are. She studies me with the same calculating gaze I remember, but there's something new there, something broken. Come to gloat? No. I place a small envelope on the table. Come to return these. She opens it slowly. Inside are the photos of her old boutique, the evidence I used to bring her down. Her fingers trace the charred edges of her past. Why? Because keeping them means keeping the anger, and I'm tired of burning. She laughs softly. Clever metaphor. But we both know fires leave scars. They do. I touch my wedding ring, thinking of the nights Mark and I spend rebuilding trust, brick by brick. But scars can heal. Can they? She pushes the envelope back. Keep them, as a reminder. Of what? That protection and destruction live closer together than we think. She straightens her collar, a ghost of her old perfectionism. I told myself every lie was for love, every manipulation for family. The fire was to protect our future. James was a threat to be eliminated. She pauses. You were everything I feared becoming. Strong enough to break free, strong enough to choose love over control. Her smile holds genuine sadness. I never could. The guard signals our time is ending. I stand, but she catches my wrist. I have something for you. She pulls out a folded paper. My therapist suggested writing letters. This one, well, you'll see. I take it, not promising to read it. Blair? Her voice stops me at the door. The swing set, move it back to your yard. Some things deserve to be reclaimed. At home, Mark helps me dismantle the swing set in the fading light. Ethan watches from the porch, clutching his favorite toy. Gamma's house empty, he observes. Mark pauses, metal pieces in his hands. Yes, buddy, but we're here. We stay? The question carries more weight than a 2-year-old could understand. I meet Mark's eyes, over the dismantled frame that once symbolized so much pain. We stay, I promise. We rebuild. Later, after Ethan's asleep, I finally read Evelyn's letter. It's not an apology. She's too proud for that. Instead, it's a confession of fear. Fear of abandonment, of losing control, of becoming her own mother. The last line catches in my throat. I burned everything I loved to keep from losing it. Don't make my mistakes. Some fires aren't worth starting. Mark finds me on the porch, letter in hand. You okay? No. I lean into him. But I will be. We will be. In the neighbor's yard, Evelyn's perfect garden has gone wild. Roses tangling with weeds, in a chaotic beauty she would have hated. Nature reclaiming what control surrendered. Tomorrow, we'll finish rebuilding the swing set in our yard. Ethan will laugh on it, Mark will push him, and I'll watch them both, knowing that the greatest victory isn't in destroying your enemies, but in choosing not to become them. The letter burns at the fireplace, its ashes mixing with the remnants of old photographs. Some fires, I'm learning, can cleanse instead of destroy. Some endings aren't really endings at all, but transformations. In the darkness, our home glows with imperfect light. Not everything is fixed, not everything can be. But here, in this moment, we're choosing to build rather than burn, and maybe that's enough.